Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. You can pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. Please send us your questions by email to dj@ArtistFirst.com. Here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And in honor of Valentine's Day, I'm going to be speaking as Luther Vandross tonight. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And tonight's special edition of The Soul of the Everyman is going to explain everything.
Thanks.
So this is one where you want to take some notes.
Oh,
or maybe just replay this a few times, because we have a quote. We're going to go into the quote. I'm going to read what my paraphrasing of the quote is. And my paraphrasing of the quote is as such: women rule the world. Period. End of sentence. And that's going to be our topic tonight. And we all know it's true.
Oh, my.
We all know that left to our own devices, men would create a feral society where nobody had any more than one pair of shoes, a stick, and perhaps a tarp to crouch under. That would be it. We'd all argue about, baseball or something. But because there are women in the world, we have a wonderful, beautiful, functioning society with modern conveniences, spaceships to Mars, and all that other stuff. Without women, it's all gone.
Oh, my. Can you tell that he chose the topic tonight?
Well, and it's not, and let's just say this first of all. It's not that men are doing nothing, but men are doing everything for one thing. It's not the thing you're thinking about, although that's part of it. But they're doing everything for one thing. They're doing everything to please and, in essence, create something shiny and beautiful so that they can present it to women. And throughout all of history, that has been true. And it is the basic driving force. We have a quote. We have a quote from the famous or infamous, depending on your point of view, Jordan P. Peterson. But it's a wonderful quote. And I think I'm going to ask very politely if Margaret would read it tonight. My voice is also really lousy, but it does sound a little bit like Luther Vandross, don't you think?
Yes.
If Luther had emphysema. He might have emphysema. Who knows? Anyway, go. Maybe he's dead. It could be anything.
Stop that.
Anyway, go ahead. Do the quote, please.
Sure, after that. Oh, my goodness. All right. Women select men. That makes them nature, because nature is what selects. And you can say, well, it's only symbolic that women are nature. It's no, it's not just symbolic. The woman is the gatekeeper to reproductive success, and you can't get more like nature than that. In fact, it's the very definition of nature. Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. and in fact, this is true of all species, but in fact, let's just stick with human beings. Nature, the driving force for the evolutionary process of both societies and the species, our species, and all other species. Nature is, as Darwin famously said, natural selection. And what Peterson is basically codifying here in just a couple of sentences is that men are selected from, or you have a group of men. Let's simplify this. You have a group of men and one woman generally speaking, that situation is going to end up where a man is selected from that group, from the potential of partners. There's going to be one partnership that evolves from that. That, generally speaking, will be several very outrageous acts of desperation, followed by somebody saying yes, and then a lot of frustration after that. And that's what makes the world go round, because there's a limited okay, we have a limited lifespan, a corporeal lifespan. There is a driving natural urge, or natural what do they call it, the biological imperative, I believe, or something like that. There's a biological imperative to procreate into the next generation. Why? Because the species in and of itself wants to survive, and individually we want to pass our somewhat flawed copies of ourselves down into history, into the future. That process, though, as Margaret just said, and as Jordan Peterson just said, is not random. It is not just two molecules meet up in the night and suddenly it's one enchanted evening. It's very much that one of those entities decides, selects, and we would talk. We talk a lot about on the Soul of Everyman about free will. True relationships too are relationships which are entered into where both parties do so of their own free will, and for the reasons that they find the other to be harmonious, to have a resonance amongst the partners. However, I would postulate, and I believe this is correct, is that it is not necessarily equal in one regard, and and that is why, I'm going to just state the premise again. That is why women rule the world, because in our species, and others ones differ, but in our species, it is the matriarch, it is the woman who is the doorway, if you will, the gatekeeper. Why? We all know this, but as a social truism, why are women much more selective than men about partners? Well, because biologically speaking, the woman has a 100-fold, maybe 1,000-fold greater investment into the next generation as far as resources are concerned that she has to put up into the equation than the male does, and therefore that investment into the next generation, you have to guard it. You have to, in essence, treat it as a precious thing, because in the case, I think there was one famous case, Mark, where somebody was a sperm donor, and turned out that person, through, I believe he was both a sperm donor and he ran the sperm bank, had remember
wow.
this? Remember this case?
That's right.
So the long and the short of it is this person, people would come to this clinic for artificial insemination. Well, he used his own essence to inseminate all these women, even though they thought they were getting XYZ male from the catalog or whatever, tall, long. So in the age, that was all fine until the age of DNA came around and people started to do 23andMe and all those other DNA tests. And all of a sudden, it turned out that there were several thousand people who were siblings or half-siblings. And they were like, what the heck is going on here? It looks like we all have the same father and different mothers. And they all got together, and yeah, they all kind of looked the same. They all had certain characteristics of Dr. So-and-so. So if that's funny. It's funny. It is funny unless you're one of the thousands of people. And then it's sort of sad. But at the end of the day, men can have many, many, many more children with very little investment. There's not a lot of commitment here. But each one of those partners, each one of those women, had to invest a lot into the the nurturing of this child within themselves, and then, of course, afterwards, generally speaking, even though you can go through every study and all the books and everything, in general, women do far more of the child rearing and nurturing than men do. Far, far, far more. Tens, if not hundreds of times more. Yes, men provide. Men do all these things. They protect, they provide, they do. That's what we do. We go out, we have one pair of shoes, we just go and kill things. And they get dead. And we bring them back, say, look at this. And we get this. You want me to do? What do you want me to do with that? Get me something better. Okay, I'll go back. I just have to clean off my one pair of shoes, and I'll go head out into the deep snow and go get the other thing. Anyway, but I digress. But in fact, the commitment of the female in our species is thousands of times higher. So, if that fact is true, and it is true, there's also, like everything has a pushback. So there's a pushback. Females are extremely more selective about what male they're going to allow to procreate. And that's what Peterson is saying. In essence, women select men. They select them for all kinds of reasons. Let's not go into the reasons, because he goes into that too. But, so that makes them a force of nature. Perhaps the greatest force of nature is the selection of whose genes you want to commingle with your own and allow to procreate. And the other part of this, Margaret, which is sort of subtle, but it's true, is men are what women make them to be. Men think, oh, we're self-determining and all this other stuff, and I'm going to put on my holy sneakers, and I'm going to go outside and get back in here, put on a better pair of shoes. You can't wear that tie. It doesn't match. And by the way, this is true. You will stop dead in your tracks, and you will change your shoes. But it's extremely important. Why? Because those things are your lease, your part of your contribution to your own personal future, your own personal, echo into the that which is beyond you, as well as species itself. There's a biological imperative here, and you cannot ignore these things, no matter how many books you read and how much you want to lie to yourself. None of that really matters. At the end of the day, there is a selector and there is the selected. And the selected, if there are more than one of you, has to compete, be the best. And so men, generation by generation, are what women make of them. So if you don't like the way men look today, and this is another part of Peterson's talk, you have to look to what nature forces are selecting men to be this way. If men are suddenly wearing, their underwear on the outside and marching around with their fingers stuck in their ears, it's probably because that's what gets them, selected.
Oh my!
So that's my diatribe for the moment. Go right ahead, Mom.
Okay. First of all, we're looking at the statement that Peterson had made, and it does have to do with the way nature is. And if you're just watching animals in general, you see behaviors that humans can sort of identify with. When what animal now was doing that? It was a young male. Was it a monkey or an otter? Might have been an otter. And he basically was finding things for his mate. He would find these things, he would bring it back, and he would just lay it down next to her. Wouldn't wake her up, just lay it down there and just wait. And when she woke up, she either accepted what was brought to her, the gift, or rejected it. And the whole push was for her to accept the gift. And we're watching, we have a pair of mated Cooper's hawks here. And that's what we were seeing. They were building nests. The male would go out and he would hunt. And he would bring back whatever it was he caught. It was a mouse, a squirrel, pigeon.
Some small animal.
He would bring it back to her. And if she received it, he's happy. But if she didn't, forget it. And it was also when they were building the nest. He'd be bringing back these huge sticks or whatever. And if she didn't choose it, forget it.
Right. and that you see, it's interesting you mentioned birds, because the birds have tremendous, and we're talking mostly humans, but birds have tremendous selection rituals. Everyone's familiar with all these different, incredibly complicated mating rituals that go amongst birds. And, you know,
the dances.
The dances and the
mating dances. That
you know, the some of these, you know, like the bowerbirds, build these amazing structures, and there's a huge number of them, not all, where it is one member of the species, usually the male species, will be in direct competition for one or less. Several males will be in competition for one female, and they all have to, in essence, prove themselves. We're couching it anthropomorphically in human terms, but it seems quite obvious that you know, whatever this gift or feather or whatever it is, which they display and show, and you can see, if you just kind of project that the female of the species, again, who has the much higher investment in energy and time. Not all females do all the, let's say, nest building or all the egg rearing or whatever, but there's a huge investment in time in just creating that egg.
Right. Well, we're talking about a generality.
Yeah.
But there are many where the males are taking care of the young. But when you see that and realize that, yeah, this is pretty much what happens. And it's not, remember when they were, that whole thing of pushing only the strong survive, only the, it's like, no. That's not what this is about. It's the propagation of the species.
Yeah.
And it all depends on what quality is being chosen. There was one where I think it was it squid or octopi? I couldn't remember.
Or cuttlefish or something.
Cuttlefish. I think it was the cuttlefish. And the largest male was the one who was over the female, and she was laying the eggs, and then what they do is he releases his sperm and it fertilizes her eggs. So he was a big cuttlefish and she's underneath. But there was this other cuttlefish who was also male, but he was small. But he kind of looked like her. And he went to her while the male was there, and the large male just assumed it's another female, but it was actually another male. So when she laid her eggs, the little male also released sperm as well as the larger one.
Yeah.
So it was like, this is the quality, because she didn't chase him away. That was the other thing. Usually if she didn't choose somebody, the cuttlefish would chase them away. Kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Because there's been many studies of, I think also monkey troops, where a young female will choose a lesser, not so strong male because she wants him and does not want the head male.
The alpha, if you will.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels, of course, in other species, and you see some of that, of course, amongst humans. But in general, the driving force of our species evolution, and that can be everything from, you know, technology and brain sizes and whatever. You look at the whole panoply of what we do, and really generation by generation, the selection of the next generation happens in this generation. In broad. You can't say, well, if I do this, we're going to end up with this result. That's not how it works. But if you say to yourself, why is the current generation so X, Y, or Z? Why are all the boys doing this or whatever it is? It's because that's the zeitgeist. That's the sign of the times, if you will, and that's what females are finding attractive,
or they're allowing,
in so many subtle ways. When we talk about fashion, where skirts go up and skirts go down, fashion is driven largely by females. I would say 99.99%. And in general, it's used as a signaling mechanism. I think, Margaret, you would agree with me here, is that largely women are dressing for other women. They're not dressing for men. Why? Because, well, men don't care. And it sounds cold, but we all know it's really true. Men don't care. Men don't care. Men don't care. Men will say and mean very sincerely that you look nice and I love the way you this and that and all. But if you were to come down to something radically different, you would probably get nearly the same compliments, because men will, in essence, say that whatever women are choosing to wear is just okay with them. You will get little to no, like, oh man, how can you wear that? But if you go down and bring down that same outfit to a group of women, you will get either overt or covert opinions. How could you wear that? Blah, 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 blah. Because women are signaling with these things. Amongst our species, large numbers, there's a huge communications channel, which men largely are not part of, which has to do with shoes. There's a shoe to language key. It's like the Rosetta Stone, but it's with laces. And we aren't really allowed to know about it, but I've been clued in tiny bit. But there's a subtle undercurrent of language, which is basically having to do with many aspects of shoe theory. You've heard of string theory? This is shoe theory. So anyway, with shoe theory, women are basically talking at lightning speed. Most people assume that it's limited by the speed of light, but it is not. It is actually trans time, and women will. That's one, and there's many other signaling hair and I mean, all of those are communication avenues from one woman to another woman, and men are just in the middle going, I don't know, stuff, things, leaves, whatever. And it's not that we're dumb about it. It's just not directed at us. They're not talking to us with their shoes. They're talking to other women with their shoes or with whatever it is. And that's important, because that signaling mechanism helps set up a certain level of hierarchy, if you will. Men, again, don't care about that. They care about other things. But one of the things we really, really, really care about is pleasing that potential partner or that partner. A relationship is built upon mutual acceptance, mutual resonance, but it is not identical. It isn't two molecules or two polyps, that just trade the same thing back and forth.
Diploids.
Two diploids. There are different things that each is looking for in the relationship, and they're looking for those things from the other. It's not necessarily roles or this or that or the other thing. People like to generalize these things so they can put a handle on them. Say, well, men do this and women do that. That's all crap.
Yeah.
But men, I hate to say, hesitate to say this. I will say, men and women are different. It's the shoes thing, guys. Very, very different. And what was that guy we saw that was in, the women's brains, men's brains, wired? It was a wonderful. If you ever get a chance to look it up, I can't remember his name. It's a wonderful comedy, and not really comedy, but a wonderful monologue about women's brains and men's brains. But in fact, the truth of it is,
true.
remember that?
Yeah, he was talking about how men's brains.
We have the nothing box.
We have boxes. You have nothing but boxes, and everything's got to fit just right in the box.
In the box, but we have.
And one box cannot touch another box.
None of the boxes can touch.
That's right. And whenever you're doing anything, you go over and you get that box.
Yep.
And whatever's in that box is what you deal with.
Right.
Whereas women, I think he called it, everything is connected to everything else.
Everything is connected to everything else. The car is connected to the water, is connected to the kids, is connected to the groceries.
It's just a difference function of brain.
And I think he said the nothing box, which drives women crazy. Men can sit there and for hours on end, this is one line from hours on end, think of absolutely nothing and not die. It's true. It's true. We can sit there and just and you come up and ask, what are you doing? Nothing. And we mean it. We're not doing anything. We're just breathing and our heart's thumping along, and that's about it.
No, it's just the funniest thing, because women, in all honesty, we would look at that and go, wait, how are you still alive?
How are you still alive?
If you're thinking of absolutely
nothing, you just like implode. You're just like a star. If you stop thinking about things, it just crashes in upon itself and becomes a black hole of nothingness. Nope, that's not what it is.
Oh my goodness.
We're good. What'd you say? Wait a minute, I gotta go get another box. This one's empty.
This one's full.
No, this one's empty.
This one's empty.
This one's empty.
One gentleman, I remember one woman was saying that to her husband, because they had 3 little girls. And, his wife, and he's the only male in the house.
We know someone like that.
And she just looked at him and said, how can you do that? Because he would go off into this sort of zone, as we all call it. He just zoned. And he goes, well, I can. And he takes the break from all the female energy in the house, just turns it off, and comes back when he wants to.
It's our nothing box.
I think that's a rather magical thing that you guys have, frankly.
It's a refuge.
Well, it's just women drive other women crazy because they can't turn it off.
Can't turn it off. And I think it's important. I mean, again, the old French, vive la différence. The differences are incredibly important. But again, this is our premise, is that women are the ones in charge of this process.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and see, Margaret is reminding me that we are at the half hour, so we are going to take a break right now. So we're going to go back to the studio. We'll come back to the other side, and we'll continue with our premise. I'm getting the look.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time. The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, the Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Moonstones and murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side, as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Hi, this is William B. Davis, the actor who plays the Smoking Man, or did play the Smoking Man on the X-Files. I'm also a writer, director, producer, and I am delighted to tell you that you are listening to the Artist First Radio Network.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And welcome to the second half of the Soul of the Everyman tonight in honor of Valentine's Day. And we are talking about our premise tonight, which is that women rule the world. and I think we've kind of established that, and we know that this is true. And some of the driving forces, if you will. But I think let's go a little bit into, if you don't mind, Ma, into Peterson's kind of expanded argument. And I believe from I'm not sure that it was in this particular quote, but later on or in other ones of his talks on this topic, he talks about the fact that there's a certain that if men are not given the proper environment in order to sort of understand what it is that women are selecting. Okay, you think, well, how could they not understand? Well, again, men are really clueless about this stuff. We're really just trying it. We're just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. Try this. Now try this. Oh, she didn't like that. Oh, crap. I don't got anything else. What do you got? And so, I mean, that's it. That's it. We're just trying anything, So we're just throwing it up there. And there's a certain level of randomness to that. There truly is. There truly is from the male side of because it's a deep and obscure mystery on how we get selected. Because no one tells you. It's just you get a smile, you get a nod, somebody says, "You look very handsome today." And you go, "Oh crap, I'm being selected. What did I do? I better write this down. I can tell other people." No, none of it. You can't do that because it's something arcane. Anyway, so, but if men don't understand that, or if they're kind of lacking those clues, you get sort of a rudderless generation. And Peterson has a premise or two about that, about how the current generation, the youth, if you will, are a bit rudderless right now. And I would postulate, I'm not sure if he said this also, but I would postulate that there's some sort of communications breakdown here. And maybe there's some sort of third factor that's sort of interfering or becoming an impairment on the communications between the men and women. The selection process is getting a little bit interrupted. And what happens is when you have rudderless men, young men especially, they don't know what to do with themselves. They're just unable to connect. They're unable to figure it out, or they're having a lot of trouble figuring it out. And sometimes it's when societal changes too rapidly, and you just have the things that quote unquote worked before don't work anymore, and the communications lines are not clear, or it's in a shifting sort of tide, if you will. So I think that he's put up a few postulates about what he thinks that should be.
Right. He is allowing this generation to see what it is that they participated in, the society that they had been in before, and then the shifts and changes that are going on. And there is a lot of there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of anger, because what had been before is being looked on as evil or constraining. And I was thinking about what you were saying, that women basically through their selection are guiding a civilization in one direction or another.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting, because if the focus of a person who is in charge of guiding a civilization becomes involved more with themselves and how they feel and their emotion, their choices are going to be very self-centered and very short-sighted. It's the short term as opposed to long term. And women in general had always looked long term, because you were bringing a new life into this world, and you had to prep the environment for this new one, this new extension of yourself. It's a very intimate connection, mother and child, because this is an extension of you. Male or female, doesn't matter. It's your baby. It's as simple as that. So, if you are refocused as one of the male, not even male, what's the word? If you are choosing the pathway that a civilization is going to go, and you're choosing short-sightedly, the generations that come will be focused on only immediate and short-sighted goals, because that's how you're acting.
Yeah.
Each generation is mimicking the one before. It follows, it copies what it sees. It doesn't matter what you say. It's what you're doing and your choices that you are making. So if you're making short-term choices, it reverberates all the way through the family. And if you're only looking short-sightedly, you are not taking into account what and what kind of foundation you've given them, because the foundation is short-sighted.
Yeah.
So I think you hit the nail on the head with that consciously, if women consciously come back to the awareness that this is what you are teaching to perpetuate the next generation, to perpetuate your heart.
Yeah.
Because your children are your living, beating heartbeat. I believe the focus will come back. Because there's been a lot, goodness gracious, we grew up, 60s? You're supposed to, it's all about me and how I feel, and how dare you tell me what to do with my body?
Yeah.
Okay. That's short-sighted. It's just short-sighted. It means that you don't really care that you happen to be the portal by which this other soul is coming through. You're only concerned about the state of you. And is that really what you want?
Yeah.
Because you're being also told that this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to become short-sighted. You're supposed to look only to what you want, as opposed to understanding that this is a group, this is a family, this is a team effort.
Yeah.
Not just about you, although you are the driving force. You are able to help focus a family in a direction on many levels. So if a person is only looking short-sightedly, it means that you are totally in the body mindset, or the emotional mindset, or the mental mindset. You're not, which is, of course, the ego mindset. You are not looking past all that, which requires the element of soul and spirit.
Yeah.
The ability to go trans-time, to understand that there's more to you than just your physical body. Because this culture is focusing strictly on the physical body. And you're supposed to keep it young, and you're supposed to keep it beautiful and healthy, and eat only as if that's the only thing you are. You are the influence of souls coming in. And are you teaching them to hate, or are you teaching them to love? That would be my question.
I think these are great, wonderful points. I mean, to some extent, you can look at it from the point of view of, if you are, as you said, selecting sort of a short-sighted manner, what you're really saying is that the universe ends with my life. My life is the beginning and the end of the universe, and there's no future. And the only thing is that in some ways it's a now, but it's a little now. It's an I-centered now. It's the dopamine hit now.
Right. It's a physical. What are the physical? I want immediate gratification.
Immediate gratification, and to go back to our premise a little bit, women as a force of nature in selecting partners, in focusing on, let's say, not anything beyond their corporeal existence. This is, you could say this in broad rather than in particular, because you can find exceptions to every rule. But if in broad a society is looking very short-sighted then you aren't looking for, you're not concerned about what the next generation is. You're almost saying, I don't care about the next generation. I only care about, this go round, if you will. And this is, to some extent, and people say, oh, well, you're blaming everything on women. No, I don't want to do that at all. I just said that there's a symbiosis here. There's a push and a pull. There's a reaction here. The fact that a very important selection process, and perhaps the most crucial selection process, is going in a particular direction, whatever that direction is, has profound effects on the society as a whole. And the interface here, the male-female interface, is where creation happens, creation of the next generation. And how it works, and this is, very subtle differences there have generational effects. So it's truly like the butterfly effect in one regard, very small changes in the way a society looks at this type of thing. And cultures differ across the world, so you can't generalize. But if you look at the West right now, you have declining birth rates. You have a tremendous sort of disillusionment with long-term relationships. You have people who are more and more choosing not to engage on a social or relationship type level. They talk about the kids today are less and less interested in even seeing each other physically, much less having sex. They're just not even talking. It's all online. Well, when you see a society like that, where the zeitgeist is sort of moving away from even being concerned about the next generation, you could say, well, there's going to be some 20 years from now, 30 years from now, because people do not last forever. In 30, 40 years, which is very short on a cosmic time scale, you'll see tremendous effects on societies in a couple of generations. The kids today who are 8, 9, 10 years old, in 10 years will be 18, 19, 20, and in 10 more years will be 30-ish. And they will be the next generation, and the current generation will be doddering along and, bumping into hallways. Which I'm doing now, even. So this selection process, people say, oh, it's this or that. No, it has far-reaching effects, especially when it's reinforced by culture, and it's reinforced by, sort of fashion, if you will, how people think about things. That sort of it has a tremendous, long-lasting effect. Is it forever? No, because these things always go in cycles. But the cycle we're in right now could be heading off a little bit of a generational cliff for a while.
Right. The other point I'd like to bring up is that males in general, they had been categorized or classified as always being short-sighted. Okay, they don't.
That's true.
I remember a conversation. Some women we were chatting, and they were saying how men in general, why they're not interested in long-term relationships. And you think about that. This generation is looking at the world in general and saying, well, I don't think I can handle that. There's too much involved. I can barely survive on my own. Like I'm still in my mother and father's house.
Right.
How am I possibly going to be able to support my mate and a child?
Right.
And bring them into this world,
a house and all these other things.
It's too much.
Yeah.
But the form that Peterson was talking about is understanding that the spirit within, especially for males, you are given a task, a goal. There's a focus that you guys have just been missing. And, having the short-term kind of relationship is just, well, why do I have to think about the future? Eventually you do.
Yeah, the future doesn't wait for you.
It doesn't wait for you. And Peterson was saying that young men have to be reminded that all the natural impulses inside, finding a woman to create a home, to make a garden to walk in, to have a family, to children to nurture, and as he said, an ark to build, a land to conquer, a ladder to heaven to build, and the utter terrible catastrophe of life to face.
Yeah.
Stalwartly, in truth, devoted to love, and without fear. This is a noble life that male, or actually female as well, can reach to understand that it's not about you, but something greater than you.
Yeah.
And that is what I see has been taken away by focusing solely on your own needs and wants. You have taken the nobility of a human being, a soul, a participant in this world. You've taken it out of the equation.
Or hidden it.
You have taken the hero out of the story.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, the hero. Because those are heroic acts.
Yes, all of these are heroic acts because you do these things outside of yourself with love as your foundation.
And this is actually a wonderful point, that not teaching these things, teaching or exampling, only showing the short term, and in essence, taking the nobility, which is an often unused word these days, but the nobility of being, out of the equation, and just saying, oh, you're no different than a rock. You just can think about things. No, we are very different than rocks. We are not bricks. We are hewn stones. We are
living
individuals.
Stone.
We are living stone. And as living stones, you have to endure. You have to aspire. You have to understand that you reach the end of self and realize that there is much more. Again, the short-term goals are very ego-focused. It's all dopamine hits. It's all I, and it's the little I. And
it's hollow after a while.
It becomes exactly this tremendous emptiness which comes upon a being as they realize that none of these things are going to bring the wholeness, the completion, the realization of being, the nobility of struggle, and the ultimate, the ultimate defeat. Yes, you die. In the end, with all your struggle, you die. But your death is like Tecumseh. It brings the song of you back to the eternal, and that song, it can be a noble, wonderful struggle, a heroic journey, which you were actively participating in, where you took risks, where you were defeated, where you triumphed, where you loved, you lost, all those, the tempestuous, that's a good word, seas of life that you sailed through, men and women.
Yes.
But I think if this is not, okay, if women as the selectors are not selecting heroes, you don't get heroes.
Right.
Because if women say, I want you to be a hero, then gosh darn it, we will go out and hero something. Let me go find, I'll find anything you want and I will hero it to death. But if you just say exactly, because again, we're just tossing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks, and if no direction, you get whatever confetti. But if you give even the slightest direction, as the generic woman of this society, say the direction is go out and slay that dragon, and you will get a bunch of dragon slayers. You will get heroes, all vying for each other, bringing you different colored dragons, bigger dragons, littler dragons, dragons with spikes, dragons without spikes. I don't care, any kind of dragon. Look. And you go, that's the one. You've slain the right dragon. And the guy's going like, I had no idea. This dragon that just popped up out of nowhere. I'm not going to mention that. Good, let's go. But if you don't look for dragon slayers, you don't get them. Or if you don't choose dragon slayers, you don't get them.
Yeah, and frankly, you raise a generation up, and you can raise heroes up. And it's not just males, but females.
Oh, yeah.
To allow the next generation to find out that they are heroes of their own stories.
Yeah.
Not your story, mind you.
Exactly. Very good point.
But of their stories, because I can immediately see, we'll make this thing and then we'll make this person the hero of the story. It's like, no, you don't understand. Each person has their own song.
Yes.
And their own story to sing. Your job is to find that spark within where they are a hero and allow them to live it.
To realize it.
To shine as brightly or burn as brightly as they are to be.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how long or how short their lives are.
Right.
But to be the hero of their own life story is a beautiful and noble thing that any mother or father can help their child go to.
Yeah.
Bring it in, manifest, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
But that is the purpose of a father or a mother. Whatever greatness that is within the child in front of you. And let's face it, if you look, you can see the greatness in every single child that is in front of you. And to nurture that, my gosh, to nurture that flame so that this light will be something for all the rest of humanity to see.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing. And it is a noble thing.
Noble thing. It takes the openness of a parent to know that it isn't your dreams that they're going to live out. You say, I want you to be this, I want you to be that. You're well intentioned, but it's wrong. You have to look deeply at this child. Hey, where's your spark? It may be very different. It may be nothing that I have any affinity with, but you have to say, whatever it takes to give this, to make a nurturing ground for this spark, I'll do. And then it'll catch like a fire and go on its, and become its own thing. But in the beginning, it's small, and you can crush it.
Yes, or you can, and it's a selfish thing to do.
Yeah.
This is where short-sighted choices can happen.
It's true.
And I believe we have reached the end of our hour.
You have selected that correctly, yes.
I see. So I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
Thank you for listening.